Why are people in Hollywood with so much money and so many incredible blessings, why are they all miserable? And why do we get the most gruesome crimes originating in one of the costiest zip codes in the country? Right now, we're trying to get to the bottom of 3 missing people and 1 woman's torso in a dumpster. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us here at Crime Stories and on Sirius XM 111. Take a listen to this.
Police say they got a call from one of Sam Haskell's neighbors who reported seeing suspicious bags outside the Tarzana home, and the bags appear to have body parts in them. LAPD Detective Ephraim Gutierrez.
The radio call November 7th at about 5:30 p.m. Involved a suspicious bag that possibly contained a human remains. When the officers responded, nothing was located.
Even though nothing was located, an investigation was launched.
This is what we know. The original call to police we first thought was from neighbors, but now it appears to be from some construction workers in the area. What a twisted story. Listen.
The men try to report what they've seen to the police, but are turned away. Twice. The men went to the highway patrol station first, but were told they had to go to the Los Angeles Police Department. The LAPD Topanga Station tells the men to go back outside and call 911 from the courtyard.
Oh, okay. I've got an all-star panel to make sense of what we know right now about 3 missing people and a woman's torso that has been found in a dumpster there in LA. But first to Alexis Tereszcuk joining me from this jurisdiction, crimeonline.com investigative reporter. Alexis, thank you for being with us. So let me understand this. A construction worker sees body parts in a bag, tries to call police. They shuffle him from that spot to the Topanga Station there, I guess, near the Topanga Mall. They tell him to go back to where they were and call 911. Do I have that right?
They do. They had these trash bags. They thought, oh my gosh, this is not something normal. This is probably body parts. We think this is what it is. They go to a police station. The police say, well, where did you get these bags from? Oh, you got it from this house over there. You need to go to that jurisdiction. Didn't look at the bags, nothing at all. Probably didn't even believe him. So they send it to the next place, and they're like, yeah, you got to call 911.
You know, this is right out of a movie. Let me go to Chris McDonough joining me, director of the Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, host of a YouTube channel, The Interview Room, where I found him. Chris McDonough, have you ever seen Home Alone?
Yes.
Okay. I know you know where I'm going. Where the mom calls, I believe this must have been Home Alone 2, where she calls from Paris and she gets sent to one person, and then they knock on the wall and they send the phone to the next person, and back and forth and back and forth. She never gets the right police officer and finally starts calling neighbors. I know that is a funny, a comical example of what we're talking about, but really, these people are trying to report a bag of human body parts, and they get sent on a wild goose chase. I tell you what, if I were the police chief, which of course I'm not, I would totally clean house over who chose not to take a report on a bag of body parts, Chris McDonough.
Yeah, and I can bet you, Nancy, you're 100% right. This is right out of a Hollywood horror movie. And that police chief Moore, Michael Moore, who's LAPD chief now, he's going to be questioning a lot of folks.
Well, I hope he does more than question them. I mean, you get a call about body parts, you better go like grease lightning to investigate. And that delay cost the case a lot of time and possibly a lot of evidence. Let's move forward. And remember, everybody on the panel, again, we're not having high tea with Charles and Camilla. at Buckingham Palace. Jump in. Listen.
LAPD Detective Ephraim Gutierrez says early the next morning, police received another call about human remains.
The caller was a homeless man that was digging through the dumpster to look for recyclables and discovered what he believed to be a human remains.
All that was recovered was the torso, but there were clues in the bag.
Just from a visual inspection, the stages of decomposition were relatively early, so no more than a day or two.
Okay, I'm glad that an untrained cop can look in and tell me the level of decomposition, but actually he may be right. You know, let me go to Troy Slayton, high-profile criminal defense attorney joining us out of this jurisdiction, LA. You know, if it were anywhere else, I would just assume they were the same body parts, but in LA, they could be entirely a different set of body parts. But logically speaking, Troy Slayton, do you think they could then add 2 + 2 =? These are the same set of body parts as we got reported yesterday?
Well, the coroner and medical examiner, which are the same here in Los Angeles, they're going to start having to piece these things back together. So the body parts that were recovered by these construction workers and whatever was found by this homeless person, it's not going to take very long for them to decide if that's the same body part. And the robbery homicide division of LAPD, which is the most elite squad in the LAPD, is going to be investigating and try and put 2 and 2 together.
Dr. Michelle Dupree joining me, forensic pathologist, medical examiner, former detective, author of Money, Mischief, and Murder, The Murdaugh Saga, the rest of the story on Amazon, and she literally wrote the book, The Homicide Investigation Field Guide. Dr. Dupree, we're all talking about bags of body parts, but to this victim or victim's family, the discussion of body parts, that is their loved one. That is their daughter, their sister, their mom, their dad, their grandpa, that we're talking about. Body parts. Body parts.
You're absolutely right, Nancy. These are somebody's family. They are, I'm obviously very upset about this, and it's a tragic thing to find.
It's not just the shock of ultimately learning that you have lost someone you love, possibly that you love more than anything else in the world, but then finding out that they are a crime victim, a murder victim, and then to find out that they have been dismembered, that their dead body has been defiled in such a horrible, horrible way. To Dr. Gary Procato, clinical psychologist, author of The New Evil, Understanding the Emergence of Modern Violent Crime. Now that is a read. Dr. Procato, that's a lot for one person to take in. I mean, I remember when my fiance was murdered. At first, I just assumed that there had been a car crash. And then I found out he was murdered. And frankly, I don't remember a whole lot after that. But to then learn that someone dismembered the person you love more than anything else in the world, I don't know, how do you make a comeback after that?
It's extremely difficult because a person would have to make some kind of meaning out of what it is that happened in their life, some kind of existential or spiritual meaning, and to try to go out in the world and battle that kind of darkness so that other people don't have to experience it. And people that I've worked with who have been victims of violent crime, it seems to be the only way that they're able to make any sense of purpose out of it. But of course, my heart goes out to the family of this poor woman.
Guys, what is happening? One set of remains found or spotted outside of a home. Police finally get there after sending the civilian informant on a wild goose chase. When they get there, no more remains. It's gone. They don't execute a search warrant. They do nothing, claiming they don't have enough evidence to execute a search warrant in the home. The next day, it's reported that there is a female torso found in a dumpster. Let's pick it up right there. Take a listen to our friends at Crime Online.
The LAPD says that when they processed the scene where the torso and the bag were found in a dumpster, the investigation provided detectives with information that led them to the residence of Samuel Haskell. Police are still not saying what they found that led the investigators to the Haskell residence. Detective Ephraim Gutierrez told ABC7 that officers made entry at the house and discovered evidence of a crime, including some blood evidence and other items that they are not releasing to the public. The children have been located and are being cared for by family members. However, Haskell's wife and in-laws have not been located.
Wow. So processing the torso, something about that bag in which the torso was placed, apparently in a plastic bag inside a black duffel bag, led them to the home of Sam Haskell IV. Who is that? Listen.
Sam Haskell IV is the son of Sam Haskell III, an Emmy Award-winning producer who was a high-profile agent with Hollywood's William Morris Talent Agency, where he represented A-list stars like George Clooney, Whoopi Goldberg, Dolly Parton, and many others. Haskell IV lists himself as a director and posted several clips online of low-budget videos he wrote and filmed. Former Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Brandi Glanville appears in one of the clips for a movie which appears to be a high school teen drama. Sam Haskell IV lives in a 6-bedroom home in Tarzana with his wife, Mei Haskell, their 3 young sons, and Mei's parents, Gaoshen 72, and 64-year-old Yanxiang Wang.
Okay, back to Alexis Tereszchuk joining us, crimeonline.com investigative reporter. So Sam Haskell IV is the son of a high-powered talent agent who was known as the, quote, good guy of Hollywood. The dad, Haskell III, was the CEO, I believe, of the Miss America pageant for many, many years. Has, I think, still working with Dolly Parton in her Magnolia Productions. I mean, the dad is renowned. In fact, I think he was the worldwide head of TV work for William Morris.
That's
Do I have that right?
true.
Haskell
Yep, all of that is
III.
correct. The father. But he was the head of the pageants. He separated from the pageant organization
Right,
about a
over
year
a
ago.
dispute regarding some emails. But
Correct.
Then that
But
leads me
he
to
was a very high power for Hollywood.
the
signature,
son, Haskell
big agency.
IV. Now, from what I understand, this guy, Haskell IV, has directed a few things, including working with Tyga and Machine Gun Kelly. But he never reached the level of his father's fame. Is that right?
Correct. Not in any way, shape, or form. And he mostly put things on social media where he would do videos, on TikTok.
Wait a minute.
Go.
I'm so glad you said that. Let's take a listen to Sam Haskell IV, the fourth, on social media, his TikTok. This is our cut 14.
Like my resume says, unhappy, bitter, resentful. Now I'm consistently never gonna stop drinking. Shouts out to the waiter at the restaurant above Nordstrom's for just completely burning out of my fillet. What kind of a monster are you, homie?
What? Wait, Sydney, can I hear that again?
Like my resume says, unhappy, bitter, resentful. Now I'm consistently never gonna stop drinking. Shouts out to the waiter at the restaurant above Nordstrom's for just completely burning out of my fillet. What kind of a monster are you, homie?
Okay, this guy, Sam Haskell IV, is living in a nearly $3 million home in Tarzana, which is a really beautiful area around LA. He's got an enclosed backyard, I've seen it myself, with a gorgeous pool, a play area for his children, the works. It's a 6-bedroom home, and he is whining that he's unhappy, bitter, and resentful. He's never going to stop drinking. Thanks for sharing. And complaining that the waiter at the restaurant on top of Nordstrom's, I guess it's at the Topanga Mall, I'm not sure. Nordstrom's, which is a really expensive department store, burned his filet mignon. Wait, okay. Alexis, tell me about this area because I've seen it and it's really beautiful.
It is. Tarzana is part of Los Angeles County. It's a little bit away from downtown. It's in the valley, but it's beautiful, lush green homes, very spaced out, not right on top of each other at all. Tree-lined streets, really good schools around there, nice areas for your kids to play, nice, restaurants and malls where you could take your kids, parks, the dumpster, everything is right near a park. Just a lovely area that for somebody who doesn't seem to work, you would think probably maybe his parents bought this very expensive home for him. And they just moved there in December of 2020. So in the middle of the pandemic, they moved.
And joining me right now is a special guest. It is El Benami. Wait, Benami. Is that right, El? Am I getting it right this time?
That's right, Benami.
Thank you for being with us. We're all trying to figure out what exactly is happening. You are a friend and neighbor of Mei and Sam Haskell IV. What can you tell us about them?
So they moved to the neighborhood, like you said, in December 2020, January 2021, during the pandemic. And from the beginning, I did think that it struck me that they were very different, Sam and Mei. She's extremely outgoing. Right when she moved in here, she came around and she introduced herself and she wanted to make plans with us and the kids. And he was not like that. He would say hello if I saw him on the street, maybe kind of like nod his head. He would smile, so he was outwardly friendly. But in the, I guess, 3 years that he lived next to us, I never actually had a conversation with him. But with Mei, it was very different. I had many, many long conversations with her, took many long walks, and can't say the same for him.
Question. You spent time with Mei, and I know that Mei lived in the home with her parents, ages 72 and 64. What was she like?
Mei?
Yeah.
So Mei was just a very, very sweet person. Very generous, very sweet, very caring. Would kind of get excited about small things, kind of a bit in like a childlike way, which was very endearing. She loved to be around people. She threw many parties. She was very dedicated to her 3 boys, and always threw them really amazing birthday parties. Really went all out. She, threw parties for Chinese New Year. And she always loved to make plans, make sure, her boys have a lot of things planned out, and also took them to many extracurricular activities after school, from music to sport to, advanced math and so on.
Okay, that is a mom that cares. I mean,
yes.
I've been there, and I know the ages of her children, her 3 boys. You're constantly in the road, taking one to music, or this one to gymnastics, or this one to soccer, or whatever it is that they latch on to that they like. And I mean, I'm that way with 2. I can only imagine what it's like with 3. What was her relationship with Haskell IV?
So I will say that she never really discussed her relationship with him with me, but just from observing them, I would say that they weren't close. They didn't have anywhere near a close relationship. I would definitely not call it that. Never seen them be affectionate with each other. They never went on date nights. She never mentioned them going on a date. I never observed them going out anywhere together. They didn't go on vacations together. So she would go on vacation with her children and her parents, and he typically went on solo trips, I think, typically to Japan. According to Mei, some of them were work-related for filming. They both, for example, like to take walks in the neighborhood. I never saw them take a walk together.
You know, that's really interesting, Elle. And guys, you're hearing a friend and neighbor of Mei and Sam Haskell IV. Troy Slayton, I'm just trying to imagine this, where you go, I mean, maybe it's because of schedule, but I try really hard to make it so my husband and I can go on walks together or jog together. If I can't get him, I try to get one of the twins, just because that's 40 minutes to an hour that you can not just walk, but you can talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Nancy. That's something very important. I love to take walks with my spouse here in beautiful Los Angeles, but he lived with his in-laws too. And I'm not making any kind of excuse, but people sometimes in that situation feel trapped. They feel that there are no boundaries, and starting to think about what some of the defenses might be psychologically for him.
That he lived with his in-laws? Are you kidding me? I've got my 92-year-old mother with us, okay? And you know who's the very sweetest to her? My husband. If he feels trapped, he hasn't said so.
That's nice, but a lot of people suffer tremendous psychological stress from living with their in-laws.
Okay, well, I can't wait to see how that goes over. Was that you, Elle, about to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that May's parents, they were, I mean, of course, I don't know what went on inside their home, but from what I could see, they seemed to be extremely helpful. Anytime I observed them with the children, they always, both of them were actively, chasing after them, helping. Her mom cooked a lot, I think pretty much daily for them and for the kids. When May threw birthday parties, it was not Sam that helped in any way. It was her parents. Even though they didn't speak English, they were constantly actively helping, and her mom had suffered a stroke prior to COVID, and
Right.
so she does use a cane to walk. That didn't stop her from being always on her feet and helping.
I'm just thinking about the dynamic you're telling us, but I want to circle back very quickly to something Alexis Tereszchuk was reporting earlier. I want to go back to these day laborers, the construction workers. Take a listen to our cut 2 from Dave Mack.
25 miles west of downtown Los Angeles, in an area once owned by famed author Edgar Rice Burroughs and named for his famous character Tarzan, Tarzana is in the San Fernando Valley and has become a popular place for celebrities and those in the entertainment world to call home. It's also where Sam Haskell paid a group of day laborers $500 to haul away 3 large trash bags that were in his garage. Speaking to NBC4 Los Angeles, the workers said Haskell told them the bags were full of rocks, but the workers said when they picked up the bags, they felt like there was meat inside. Realizing what they were carrying wasn't rocks, the workers pulled over about a block from Haskell's house to look inside the bag. Opening the bags, the men knew they'd been tricked.
And more. Listen.
The men described the bags to NBC4 as soft and soggy, and each weighing about 50 pounds. A block away from Haskell's house, the workers opened up the bags and said they started seeing body parts. specifically a belly button. The men said they felt bad they'd been tricked, so they drove back to Haskell's house and left the bags in the driveway and gave Haskell his $500 back. Haskell played it off, telling the workers what they actually saw were Halloween props. Not believing Haskell, the men drove immediately to the police.
Okay, Alexis Tereszczuk, crimeonline.com investigative reporter, joining us from L.A. What?
So he hired some men, day laborers, as you go to maybe Home Depot or somewhere like that, and you say, hey, guys, I've got some heavy things in my house. These men are usually big, strong men, and they have trucks. They come to your house. So that's what they did. They took the bags, and he said, oh, they're rocks. Well, rocks are really heavy, and they don't move. But you can't squish them. But these bags were heavy and squishy, and the guys, their description was it felt like meat. So they were, like a huge hunk of meat, squishy, but still a little solid. They looked in the bags. They saw what it was. And what they specifically described was they saw a belly button. So it's like the torso from, above your waist, below your chest, below your neck. And that was horrific. So they took the bags back. The guy gave them their money. They gave the money back. And then they went to the police. They go to the first police station they can find. The police said, well, that's not actually our jurisdiction. Why don't you go to this other police station or call 911? These guys come in with, sure, it's a little bit of a wild story, but you should investigate this. This is really, they're not telling you anything that is out of the norm in Los Angeles.
Everything you're saying, I believe,
frankly,
is correct, but what's jumping out at me is changing his story. First, the bag is full of rocks. Then he says, oh, those are just Halloween props, even though it looks like human body parts.
An actual human body.
And then the next thing we know, a bag of human body parts turns up in a dumpster. But let me take it back. Joining me is a neighbor of Mei and Sam Haskell IV. Mei, the mother of 3 little boys by Haskell. Question, what, if anything, did you hear the previous night?
So I was not home the previous night, but my daughter, she actually texted it to us that night. She heard what she thought was the youngest boy from their house or perhaps from the yard shout, hello, hello, help. And then she heard a car door slam and loud screeching, I guess, as the car drove off.
Okay, hold on. Could you slow that down and tell me one more time?
Okay, so my daughter texted us at around 9 p.m. on Tuesday, the night before the torso was found, that she heard what she believed to be the Haskell's youngest boy coming to, basically maybe from the house or from the yard, call out, hello, hello, and then help. And then she heard a car door slam really hard and a screeching sound, a loud screeching as it drove off.
Joining me now is Dr. Trace Sargent, a search, rescue, and recovery expert, PhD in psychology, focusing on victimology, star of a podcast, The Seeker's Quest. Dr. Sargent, thank you for being with us. You look specifically at predatory behavior. What do you make of someone that not only commits murder, but then dismembers the body?
Well, Nancy, we look at several things, but I'd like to go back to Sam Haskell IV's comments on social media. That in itself tells us a lot when we're looking at it from a criminal profile perspective, behavioral analysis, psychological analysis. And what is glaring to me is that he perceives himself as the victim. And I would not be surprised when this case and this story moves forward that he presents himself as the victim and maybe even go as far as blaming the circumstances that led to the death of his wife and probably his in-laws, that it was somehow their fault, not his fault. He will not take accountability or responsibility for his actions.
Do you agree with that, Dr. Braccato?
Well, I have a few things to say about this case, and I think in some ways I'm sort of uniquely suited to look at it because it touches on two areas that have been major ones for me in my research. First of all, dismemberment and mutilation need to be distinguished. I worked with Dr. Ann Burgess, Dr. Victor Petreka, Dr. Michael Stone, and we came up with definitions to distinguish those offenses. It's important for people to understand that dismemberment, according to our work, really means the destruction or removal of a large part of the body, the torso, the arms, hand, pelvis, legs, or feet. And any destruction or elimination of a smaller part thereof of any, would be mutilation. And the reason it's important is there are differences in the psychology and motives of people according to which of those things they're doing. What it sounds like here, we don't know how much butchery there was, but this sounds like dismemberment offense. And with dismemberment, we found in our research that the vast majority of offenders are doing that to get rid of body parts because of concern about capture. The outside, looking in makes it seem like it's some kind of bizarre, psychotic, crazy thing to do. But the reality is it's a pretty organized thing to do that's done by a person that's trying to clean up after they've eliminated people. Now, the other thing that I think kind of puts me in a unique position here is I know that, there's been a charge that this man has killed not only this woman, but her parents, which would place him in the category of mass murder. When I was at Columbia Medical Center, I led the largest study ever done of mass murder. And what I can tell you is that in order to know the motives of a person who commits mass murder, we have to know what was used to kill. If a gun is used, there's a very low likelihood that the person was seriously disturbed or mentally ill. If something else was used, like a knife, then we start thinking that this was an individual who was unwell in some way. The statistics it becomes much more probable that the person was disturbed. Now, in this particular
if they
situation,
use a knife, is that what you said?
Yes, the use of a knife would be more of a giveaway that you were dealing with somebody that would be authentically odd interpersonally, a little more kind of unwell. And so
Right. Are you saying insane? Or are you just saying
not insane,
quirky?
just odd. For example, the individual might be paranoid or a little bit aggressive or
Are you
agitated.
talking about someone that kills and dismembers with a knife?
Talking about someone who commits mass murder using a knife.
What doesn't it go without saying that they're odd?
Well, odd, when I say odd, I don't mean odd because you've committed murder or anything like that. I mean odd that even at baseline, the person would say peculiar things, would be a little bit kind of odd to the average individual, hot-headed, a little paranoid, a little peculiar. And that matches what we're hearing in that weird recording from TikTok and some of these stories about the detachment and the coldness between the members of the family. Now, what's interesting about this is when we see these kinds of cases where, there's been this explosive potential killing of a family and then there's dismemberment, there's usually one of two reasons it happens. One is elimination murder, as I term it, which is where the idea is to simply get rid of them because they are an impediment to something. Like, for example, I want to have a new romance, or I am trying to get my hands on some money. The other that you see is some kind of domestic matter that causes an emotional disruption, and somebody in an absolute rage kills someone and then has to kill everyone who has witnessed it in the family. So that what I would suppose, if it turns out that this is indeed a mass murder followed by dismemberment, was that there was some kind of hot-headed, angry, odd person who became enraged or had a motive to get rid of these people, did so and then attempted in a clumsy, weird way to hide it. And the reason it's so odd and the stories are ridiculous is often that the person is odd and lacks that kind of interpersonal empathy to kind of pick up that people would think these stories were weird.
Let's go back to the Haskell's neighbor, L. Benamy. L, question. I know you spent a good bit of time with Mei.
Mhm.
Do you have any knowledge of Haskell having a fixation on martial arts and kept samurai swords and crossbows in the home?
Yeah, so I did notice that about him. I know that she mentioned that he would direct or produce martial arts related movies or videos, or that he would go on martial arts trips to Japan. I believe, and I don't know why I remember this, but I seem to recall that he may have a black belt or a couple of black belts in different martial arts. And and then I did know about their having various weapons in the house, such as swords and samurai swords. I believe a crossbow, firearms. So that's definitely something that stayed very top of mind for me as a mom of four living next door.
Did Mei's children tell your children about all the weapons to the point you did not want your children alone at their home upstairs?
Yes, so they did mention that to my kids at several points about, like, let's say, a samurai sword, or pointing up to where supposedly a specific firearm was kept. So that made me very nervous about them going upstairs to one of the bedrooms. I did, of course, I trust Mei, and I did really like her three boys, so I was happy for them to play with my kids. I just didn't want there to be any accidents because, you sometimes hear about that on the news. So I wanted them to be somewhere where I didn't think, a weapon might be pulled out to play with as a toy or whatever.
We are hearing various reports that Sam Haskell IV, age 35, was obsessed with weapons and directed videos, very disturbing videos, with men fighting with swords and samurais, posting them under the Instagram name, Tragic Streets, with a Z on the end. And this is the guy complaining about the Nordstrom's upstairs restaurant scorching his filet mignon. Okay, in the last hours, Alexis Tereszchuk, we now know the case has progressed. What's happening now?
So he has been charged with murder for the three people. Even though we don't have bodies for all three, the district attorney has charged him with murder. And he has appeared in court. He was arrested last week, but because it was Veterans Day weekend and a federal holiday, he did not appear in court until Monday. He has appeared in court. There is no bond. He cannot bond out. There's no amount of money that he can pay to get out of jail right now. He has not entered a plea. The arraignment has been scheduled for December 8th. So he will be in jail with no way to get out between now and then.
And I assume the search is still ongoing in the outside chance her parents may still be alive. But don't LAPD, don't they believe that torso is in fact Mei?
They do believe it is her. There are also two other cars missing that were registered to the parents, which I think could be, a distraction tactic. They dump the car somewhere else and think, oh, the parents just left on their own. But it doesn't seem like that. But they do believe the torso belongs to her.
Well, I'm going to circle back to Troy Slayton on the fact that if Sam Haskell IV has hidden the cars to make them appear to be stolen, that clearly shows he knows what he's doing and is taking measures to throw police off the trail. Dr. Michelle Dupree, how do we determine if that torso is in fact the mother of three, Mei Haskell?
Well, obviously, the best way to do that is through DNA, which we should have plenty of to compare it to. When we have a torso and nothing else, and we don't have a presumed victim, it's much, much harder. In this case, however, we should be able to determine that relatively quickly.
To Chris McDonough joining me, Director Cold Case Foundation, former homicide detective, and host of The Interview Room on YouTube. What do you believe they found in that home? They're not saying.
So, Nancy, there's a couple of things. 2 points from an investigative aspect. Number one is the HSS team is involved, and those guys are called the Homicide Special Section. And they only deal with high profile, like dismemberments, that type of stuff, serial killing. They're out of robbery homicide downtown. The second, to your question, is, the first question they're going to want to establish is, did this individual have the mental capacity to know what they were doing? So they went back into that house and they probably used, various type of alternate light sources, Blue Star, luminol, that type of stuff. And what they wanted to do was establish if in fact there's any blood evidence and or any other forensic evidence that immediately can establish how many people are potentially involved in this. And then they can take that DNA swab, let's say hypothetically they found some blood, and they can put it through a machine called ANDI, A-N-D-I. And that is a rapid DNA machine. And what that does is just tells you, you have 3 types of DNA here. So that's probably what they're operating under, currently, and that's why they charged him with 3 victims.
Even though as of right now, the remains of the parents, the in-laws, have not been found. Troy Slayton, if Haskell IV hid the cars, there's no way he's going to be able to succeed. He might make a claim of insanity, but by hiding the cars or taking countermeasures to throw police off his trail, that clearly shows he knows what he did was wrong. Of course, right now, these are only allegations. Go ahead, Troy Slayton.
Nancy, prosecutors would obviously, like yourself, would have used that as consciousness of guilt and taking steps to clear your tracks, to create alternate versions of how this could have happened, shows consciousness of guilt. And the fact that his arraignment was continued for several weeks is not unusual. That means his attorney gave up and waived his constitutional right to a speedy arraignment, which starts the preliminary hearing and then trial process. So that way his attorney can start to do their own investigation and maybe try to come up with alternate versions of what happened. Maybe there was some sort of murder with other people involved. Maybe Haskell was involved. Maybe there was some other people involved as well. So the fact that this has been put over is not unusual. And what is unusual is for our district attorney here in LA, Gascon, to charge special circumstances murder.
I love the way, have you ever considered creative writing? Because your theory that somebody else was involved.
I was an English literature major at UCLA, Nancy.
Maybe there's a second career for you in that. I'm just trying to figure out also why this judge that just had Haskell IV in court is Judge Kimberly Baker Guillemette. She refused to allow his, Sam Haskell IV, face be seen. Why? Because his father is a multimillionaire? I haven't seen.
No.
Then why? That doesn't happen with anyone else. It's an open courtroom.
It is an open courtroom, but the judge controls the courtroom.
Yeah, so why is he getting special treatment? Because his dad is powerful? Why?
There may be investigative reasons why.
Okay.
There could be considerations for family or victims.
They're dead. The family is dead.
Well, there are 3 children. There are 3 minor children that are still alive and that he is the father of. And so there are other considerations. There are other people involved.
Why is he getting special treatment? Because his father is a multimillionaire and he's a spoiled brat that complains about his filet mignon? I want to go last to Elle Benamy, friend and neighbor of Mei and Haskell IV. I'm just curious how you feel that he, Haskell IV, is getting special treatment. And we don't even know where Mei's head is.
Mhm.
This is bass backwards.
Right. I mean, I understand what he just said now about maybe something related to his kids, but I'm sure by now his boys know what's going on. Yeah, I mean, of course, everything now is just allegations, but what he is believed to have done is completely outrageous, infuriating, sad. I mean, I still, even a week later, nearly a week later, I can't even believe that. I can't believe that can be a reality. So yeah, I don't think he should get any special treatment. I don't think that he will, but
When you
that
were
would make
around
me...
him, what was he like, Elle?
So I will say that yes, he did come off as very eccentric, and didn't have the same social graces that Mei had. He wasn't interpersonally. He didn't come off as just a regular person. He wouldn't, if I saw him on the street or in the car, he wouldn't necessarily avoid eye contact. He would just kind of nod and smile and sort of say hi. Or if we walked past each other, say on the street, he would say, "Hi, how are you? I'm great." So it was very, I mean, a little bit fake, I guess, because I never actually had a conversation with him. So I wouldn't say that we were friendly, but he was polite, I guess is the word. And when I observed him in social situations, like I said, at a party that May threw, he was really off to the side, kind of like I described, saying hi, not ignoring anyone, but off to the side and disappearing a lot. You could kind of tell that he just didn't want to be there or didn't feel comfortable being around people, or maybe having people at his house. I'm not sure. But yeah, he was off to the side. I never saw him have a conversation with any single person. In fact, in the 3 years that he lived next to me.
We wait as justice unfolds. Goodbye, friend. Guys, thank you for watching Crime Online with Nancy Grace here on YouTube. To get the very latest, subscribe to Crime Online here